All right, so does everyone have an empty Jetpack Compose project up? Are we good on that? All right, cool. I'm going to do the same. All right, and there's two things that we're going to need first. I'm going to post it on Ed for the sake of time. But we're going to be using OK HTTP here. And I'm just going to kind of post the skeleton code for actually making a call. And it's actually just this one function here. It helps us make it. Let me try and copy this in. Yeah. So I'm going to copy it here. So you're going to want this. And you're going to want this. Don't worry about putting it anywhere for now. We'll figure out the actual architecture of our app later. Right. So I'm going to pin this and post it. All right, cool. Okay. So first things first, we're going to need quite a few third-party libraries. We touched on OK HTTP. We touched on Moshi. We touched on all different types of libraries. We're going to have to import those first. So if we all remember where to do that, it's in the Gradle. Okay, wait, this is my other one. Yeah. So I'm going to actually just post these as well for you guys. Make a comment. Okay. So if you guys first copy the third-party libraries that we need, you can see this one is calling coroutines. Coroutines is an asynchronous library for basically just fetching data without having to like block the rest of your code. So you're going to need that just so your app doesn't crash every time you make like a HTTP call. OK HTTP is the library that I was talking about earlier. That's our networking library. Moshi is going to help us convert our JSON to call-in objects. And you also need this one just in order to call coroutines, lifecycle view model. And finally, Coil is a library by Instacart that basically allows us to render images from a URL. So copy that into your Gradle file for your empty project. You can just go here. Let me close this out now. Copy it, just copy it right down here. So I'm going to do the same. And let me know when everyone has that step done. Just raise your hand or something. All right, let's see this. Might take a bit the first time. Okay, seems to have synced. All right, so I hope everyone got that up and running. So we have our empty project. This is all pre-generated. And we imported our third-party libraries down here. Don't worry about those, like the highlights. That just means it's like an older library, but it works fine. All right, so we're going to start by building out the view first. So we want a text box, we want a button, and we want like an image. I'm not really doing any styling here, just for the sake of demonstrating the demo. But how we would do that is we first, like always, we create a new file for, oops. let's create a new file in our app, and we'll just call it like the main screen. Delete this class because we're going to make it a composable. And it's going to be, what is going on there? It's going to be a function called main screen. And you can see in here, everything is aligned like column wise. So let's just use a Jetpack compose column. Like so. Import. And yeah, we'll just start throwing in our UI elements. So let's start with the text field. So just type capital T, capital F text field. Import it. And you want to see like what exactly the text field takes. It takes an initial value of string. It takes in a value of like, this is like the on value changed function. And then it has like additional modifiers. So let's first specify our initial value. We'll say it's an empty string. And we can say our on value change is just like, we don't do anything right now. So this text field is not going to really work. We can't actually enter anything, but we're going to tackle that in the future. So now we're going to write a button. Like so. And we need an on click for it. Right. And so on click, what we're going to do is basically make a query. Again, we don't really have the stuff for that, but we're going to tackle that later. And then one more thing, the image, the actual image, we're going to use Coil's library called async image, capital A, capital I. And import that. We're going to use something called model, which is basically like the URL that's supposed to display. And it also needs a content description. This is basically like the string that is displayed whenever the image can't load. Let's make it like an empty string for now. So yeah, this is our UI. I don't think it's going to do anything. Oh, wait 1 second. I actually need to go back here. Let's delete all this pre-generated code at the bottom and just put in our main screen here into the set content for main activity. So let's rerun. Okay, cool. So we have these. We can also give our button a label by just adding a text field inside the scope of the button. You can see down here, you just do it like so. And say value equals click. Cool. Oh, not import. Okay. It's called text. Cool. Try that. Very cool. Now what we're going to do is actually build out kind of like the backend, but more specifically like the networking aspect of our code. And so we're going to tackle something called MVVM. We touched on it last lecture. Let me try and pull it up. But it was basically like this paradigm, right? MVVM, where we have a view that interfaces with a view model and an underlying model that basically informs the view model here. So what we can do is actually go here and create a view model. So we're going to call it main view model. how I like to structure my code is that the view for a particular section is going to call like something like main screen, home screen, profile screen, whatever. And then the view model that's associated with that screen is going to be called like profile view model, main view model, home view model, whatever. So what we can do is just create a class called main view model. And it's going to be of type capital V, view capital M model, and then add the parentheses. So this syntax is basically like leveraging Android's like pre-built view model class and allowing us to like call like all sorts of additional like view model scoped items. So we're gonna go here. Let's first copy our networking code that I gave you guys earlier. Let me move this over here. Any questions so far? All right, let's copy this over. So this is a function that allows us to make a call to the backend. And so we're going to put this in the view model because it actually interfaces with, just start importing everything. For the callback, you want to import the OK HTTP3 callback. Just make sure that because there's a ton of other callbacks. Exception. Sure. OK HTTP client request. Request, you want the OK HTTP3 request. Make sure that response should be the same. I guess it's only one response. Moshi, import the Kotlin JSON adapter factory. And then you can import view model scope there. View model scope is basically allows us to make asynchronous calls to our backend. And we're missing one other object here, the query results data class. So we can see, I want to make it a separate file for now. Query results, and just paste that in there. But if we just look at how it's structured, we first have an annotation called JSON class. This is Moshi's way of annotating any data class to allow us to basically automatically format it from JSON to this Kotlin object. And we have another data class called picture query results that just returns an image URL. But I don't think we actually need this. Oh, I guess we do. Okay. So, and I can actually like show you guys why we have that. So let me take this HTTP URL. This is the URL that our code will be hitting, basically. This is the API that our code will be hitting. Let me paste this in. This will return us like this huge JSON of basically pictures. You can see like there's like a picture ID, and then there's like an actual page URL for like a particular photo. So you can see like there you see total is a key and hits is a key. If you go back to our code, you can see our data class and query results. You can see there's a value for total and a value for total hits. This basically maps keys here to keys here. So then, because we can't really code with this, but we can code with a Kotlin object. So that's what Moshi does. All right. And let me just explain like this function that we just kind of copy pasted in here. So get picture takes in a query string and basically appends this query string to the end of this long API call. So you can see this is just like a URL. And at the very end, it gives us a query parameter. This will allow us to basically search Pixabay for any like search query. You saw in the demo app, there was like, I can search for dark, and it returns us the first, like the most popular image that you would find when you look up dark. So yeah. And then here you have a client. This stuff, honestly, like it's on the textbook, and you can like, I'll post the code as well. This is like skeleton code that you copy and paste everywhere. You're always going to create a client and then add the URL like so. And then every time you want to make a call, you basically say client.newCall using the request that you built over here, and .enqueue, and you pass in like a callback. So every time this request happens, like on failure, it'll do something, and on response, it'll like return the data in some way. So how we're returning the data is we're getting the query. It's being adapted using Moshi, you can see here, into query results. And then once it's in query results, we're grabbing like the first value, the top most hit, and putting that in the URL variable. And then at the very end, we're using a callback that we popped in to basically do stuff outside of this function. Because right now this function doesn't return anything, but we need it to like do it somewhere else. So we pass in like an arbitrary callback function so we can use this anywhere else. All right. So that was a lot of information. Anyone have any questions on that so far? All right. So now we're going to build out our view model a little more. So if you remember from last lecture, we talked about trying to remove as much state as possible from the actual view. So right now our view is keeping track of the state of the text field, is keeping track of the state of the button, is keeping track of the state, or I mean, there's no state, the button has no state, but it's keeping track of like the state of the image as well. So what we want to do is kind of abstract this away into the view model. So then we don't have to worry about it anymore. We don't have to worry about it in the view anymore. So how we do that is we can first just give a, we can just start naming variables in the view model here. And then when we go to main screen, we would just pass in the view model as a parameter. So main view model. So now main screen is basically associated with main view model in the sense that every time we want to create a main screen, we have to pass in the view model that is associated with it. And so how we can do that is just, for now, it's not the best practice, but we can just create the view model here. Home view, sorry, main view model is equals just create like one instance of it. This is a singleton in the sense that every time this activity is created, there's only one of them. We never update or create new view models. And then we can pass in this view model here. Yeah. So we're using a singleton view model and associating with a screen that can be recomposed and decomposed a lot of times here. So this is like kind of the essence of MVVM. We have a view model that never gets destroyed and a screen that can constantly be opened and like closed again. So let's go back to our view model. And right now we just have a variable here, but this doesn't quite help us enough for like Jetpack Compose and how Jetpack Compose is able to like recompose automatically. So ideally, every time this value changes, we want the main screen to change on its own. We don't have to like do some extra painting or anything. So how we do that is we can instead make this image URL called something called a mutable state of. So lowercase m, mutable, and then capital S, capital O, state of. And then you pass in like an initial value. We want our mutable state to be strings. You can see here, if we hover over this, it's of type mutable state string. So we just pass in an empty string, and that'll be our image URL. So then we're going to write a function here called like mutate image. That's going to take in our query from our text field and update this image URL, right? Just remember that the code I sent you for get picture is private here, so we won't be able to actually call it from inside here. Instead, what you'll have to do is basically call this network request inside our view model function. So what we can do is get picture of the same query. And then if you have an open and close bracket here, it'll allow us to basically use this callback function. So if you have a callback as the last parameter of a function, you can use this extra like syntactic sugar to write the function here instead in this open bracket. So what you can do is say image URL dot value equals IT. So IT is the string that's passed outside of the callback and here. And then the function that can be called on the callback is just update the value of the image URL. And so you might be wondering, like, why don't we just say like image URL equals this? This is the reason why we use mutable state, is that we have special getters and setters. So we have to call dot value on it because the value of image URL is this special mutable state object. So you say image URL dot value equals IT. All right. So now when we come over here, we're going to say on click for this button. We're going to take our main, view model dot mutate image. And then what we're going to pass in to the view model function is just the image URL value from our view model. So you can see here, we're not like using state in the view anymore. We're only using state in the view model. So it really makes it a lot easier to code here, because especially if you're working with like one other like front end member, or just like working with someone else on a project, you won't have to like worry about stepping on each other's toes by like changing the view of the state a lot if you just like start abstracting them into the view model. All right. And then one more thing, we can also do the same for the text fields. So we're going to go here and say our text fields equals, I think I can actually make this a val as well. Yeah, makes more sense. Because mutable state is like a special object, we don't actually like change it officially. So you can just make it a val instead of a var. So val text field value equals a mutable state of, again, it's kind of an empty string. And then we can go back here and kind of rip out all this state that we kept in the view and push it to the view model. So we're going to say view model dot text field value. So the initial value of the text field is the initial value from the view model. So we're defining the state in our view from the state in our view model. I kind of sound like a broken record at this point. So then in our on value changed, we're going to say view model dot text field value dot value equals whatever is passed into this on value changed. I think it's just called IT. It's not working. On change. Let's see what's going on here. We want this one here. Okay. Don't know what happened. Value. Okay, yeah, that works. So remember, just call whenever we want to get to the value inside a mutable state, we have to call dot value. View model dot text field value dot value equals whatever is passed in for our text field. So now we can try and rerun this. And you can see when I change the text field, it actually updates, even though like our view here keeps track of like 0 state. There is no state in here, as you can see. It's all using what we put in the view model here. So I would like highly recommend when you write your own Android apps to structure it like exactly using this MVVM architecture. There's always different ways to do things, but to me, this is like the most intuitive. You just like push state in view model and you like push how that state is structured into the model here. So yeah. And then one more thing, let's finally actually get to the networking part in the last 3 minutes. So mutate image saves our image URL into this mutable state variable. So all we're gonna do is just extract that state from a view model and sort of inject it into our view here. So view model dot image URL dot value. And that actually should probably just work. Just rerun this. B. Oop, I think it crashed. What's going on here? So we're gonna, when we click the button, we mutate the image value. Yeah, that seems like right. Yep. Oh, sorry. Text field value. Right. We want to mutate the image based on what we put in the text field. That's my bad. So I was mutating the image based on what we had in the image URL, which is like always going to be empty. So the thing is always going to crash in that sense. Let's try that again. Interesting. Okay. So what is the issue now? Okay. I think I know why. Okay. I left out one crucial step. You can't reference this mutable state directly. You need basically some way to recompose it every time. So you're going to need to use something called val remember. This remember, like compose, this remember function is basically like some special composable function that allows us to get state from somewhere and recompose the like the screen every time that state changes. So it's kind of saying like remember like what this value is, and every time it changes, we're gonna change like the composable as well. So let's still use our same view model state here. You can just do that. This should work now. Otherwise, then I'll have to do a little more debugging. Yep, that should work. I'm gonna pull open our logcat just in case this doesn't work. Okay, I think it crashed again. So what is the issue? Right. One more thing that we forgot. Every time you want to make a networking call on an Android app, you need to give permission to the user to actually use their internet. Because like how are you supposed to go get like stuff from the web if you don't have access to the web on their phone? So let me just look that up again. Internet permission, Android internet permission. Let me just copy these two permission requests. These are not dangerous permission requests in that you don't have to actually ask the user. You're just basically just giving yourself access to their own internet so that you can make your call. So throw that in the manifest. And let's try that one more time. Cool. Okay, now it's working. Let me say Bob. I don't know if that gives us anything. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. So we went a little over time, so that's all we have for today. But we did finish our demo. Anyone have any questions on that? That was like a ton at once. Anyone? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, pretty much. So the view model is where you manage the states, and it's also where you can write functions that help us mutate the view in some way. So I threw my networking call here, get picture, in the view model. And I also wrote this extra function called mutate image that allows us to basically call this private function here and change the state. Because if we go back to our screen, there's no way to like really change the state from the screen unless we have this function exposed to it. So we need to write not only the actual state, but extra functions to, let me pull up the lecture notes again, to do like this stuff. So property change events go between the view and the view model, and the view model, the UI events like take it back. So every time I click this, button, which is a UI event, I'm going to call this function to change something in the view model. Does that make any sense? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it'll refresh automatically. So that's like kind of the power of Jetpack Compose. I don't know if you guys have like written anything with like sort of older UI libraries. Like, I don't know if you guys like wrote like Java Swing or Java FX, but those you would have to like call like explicitly like a function to change the UI every time. But this one, it just does it on its own every time the underlying state changes. Yeah. Any other questions? And I'll post all this on that as well, and the textbook. But yeah, I definitely think like this stuff is like really important to know as we're going into the hack challenge, because I feel like without like networking, you won't be able to do anything like serious on the web or anything like that. So yeah. So that's the end of lecture or discussion. We'll be here if you have any questions, but you guys are free to go.